Well, I think I always believed the doctrines of grace. Obviously, when I was very young in my 20s, I don't know that I had the refined understanding. I don't know that I would have been able to give a full orbed defense of every doctrine of grace, but I was always a believer in them. When I was in seminary, toward the end of my seminary days, I started reading the Puritans. And so this would have been um, graduating from seminary when I did in 1964. This would have been 5 years before I came to grace. So it was from the last year or so in seminary, in the intervening few years, that I was really kind of boning up on Reformed theology. So by the time I landed here, I was convinced. And one of the things that I wanted to do, and this was kind of an underlying commitment in my heart, was to exposit the entire New Testament. And I thought not only would that be the greatest thing I could do in my life, to provide for the congregation the whole New Testament explained and applied, but I also thought that could test my theology. If my theology, if the convictions that I held theologically were true, they would stand the test of exposition. So your theology goes into the fire in every text, right? And it has to survive the fire of every text, every text. You know, I was looking at the internet the other day, and some wistful girl said how I became a Calvinist and left Calvinism. Well, the sophomoric comment like that from somebody who should keep her thoughts to herself because she has no idea what she's talking about, is to be measured against someone who for 50 years has taken every text of the Bible and put doctrine into that text and see if it survives. And I can say that it has. So it's a stronger conviction, and in no sense is there any part of my understanding of the doctrines of grace that has been weakened. Everything has been intensified and strengthened in all these years of study.
So you never had one of those cage stage moments for you, where you came out of, a more Arminian belief and you were sort of radical in your views of Calvinism, like you see that's so common with a lot of men?
No, I never did. I don't know that as a young guy listening to my dad preach, that I thought of myself as a Calvinist, because Calvinism then, I only knew of one Calvinistic church in Southern California, and it was a bunch of Dutch guys in black suits who looked pretty miserable most of the time. And all they did was talk about Calvinism, and they had no evangelistic zeal. And I knew about that church because it was close to where I was. So that was the kind of Calvinism I saw, but that was very different than the way I could see Scripture unfolding. And I came to the conviction that I believed the doctrines of grace, but I didn't want to be that kind of Calvinist. I didn't want to be so deterministic that I lost all sense of application, life, evangelism, zeal, passion. And I think a balanced view of the doctrines of grace keeps all that intact.